coming up on EKnights. See how one professor is closing the gap between art and engineering, and how one freelance photographer is using her art and her voice to raise awareness for her genetic disorder.
That's right, plus meet celebrity barber Joe for an inside scoop on how he has revitalized the age-old art of the barber experience. All that and more today on EKnights.
Hello everyone, I'm Paige.
And I'm Arnold, and welcome to EKnights, UCF's one and only program with compelling stories about passionate people.
Each month we'll take you on an adventure and tell you more about the people that make Central Florida the extraordinary place it is. Up first, Dr. Hoekstra shares his dream of engineering art and bringing engineering and art together and how he plans to make that happen. Check it out.
Well, in the art department, my name is officially Robert Hoekstra. In the art department, I'm known as Dr. Bob. Trust the chair, trust the chair. And in the engineering department, it's Dr. Hoekstra. I actually prefer Dr. Bob, but we were supposed to be more formal than that in engineering, so I maintain that guise in engineering. I started out as a teenager running down the engineering road, did some research 100 years ago, in round numbers, it was 100 years ago, when computers were just starting to be developed long before the personal computer even existed, and did some work on some very advanced computing. And became very bored with that and decided I'd never wanted to engineer anything again the rest of my life. And so I went to college and got my first degree in English and theater and went into film production. So I naturally live in both worlds, in the art world and the engineering world, and am frankly quite comfortable in both worlds. And I went to the technology fee and said, I'm proposing to have an open space for students to get together and create world-changing ideas. And we proposed this space to them and they funded it. This is open to all students, to music students and art students and anthropology students and obviously engineering students and everybody. Come in here, play in the playground. Don't do homework here. There's lots of places to do homework. Come here and play and imagine a different world. Imagine what can be created in terms of new things that solve world's problems, new ideas that solve world's problems. This is a place for all of us to get together and play and change the world. This is my dream of bringing artists and engineers together to really work together in coming up with great ideas. We got to go back to the Renaissance, where artists and engineers are the same person, or at least they're friends, so that those ideas are being shared constantly. We've built separate silos, separate areas. And if you're an artist, you don't talk to engineers. And if you're an engineer, you know that the artist has absolutely nothing to contribute to your project, which is so wrong. And so what I'm interested in doing is finding ways of bringing it together. And we are doing that in a very unique way. There are 2 engineering courses that are now open to art students. And there are art courses that are now open to engineering students. Engineering and art work very closely together. Certainly in sculpting it does. from the perspective of there's lots of things that I do in grinding and forming and shaping and all of that kind of things that are really more related to engineering. There is a critical need for engineers and artists to learn to speak each other's language a little bit and be able to work together. Because if you think about the Renaissance, artists and engineers were the same people, and some great breakthroughs happened in that way. And we've moved away from it. We've isolated engineers and artists, and they don't work together very much anymore. And so if I have a single goal left at the university, something I want to accomplish before I retire, is to get the engineers and artists working very closely together to reform the Renaissance and have the Renaissance happen at UCF. I'm sometimes asked, because it's somewhat obvious by my gray hair, when are you going to retire? And my answer is, I have no idea. As long as I can work with great students and professors across the university so that we can help change the world, why would I go sit at home?
Wow, that is so cool. I had no idea the Idea Lab was even on campus.
Definitely, and it's awesome that there's a place available to students for them to combine art and engineering with their work.
Definitely.
But let's switch gears now. There's a student, she is not only a talented freelance photographer, but she suffers from a syndrome called 22q, and she is using her talents to raise awareness. Let's take a look.
My name is Nadia Zamarodian. I like to take photos and do acting and modeling. I started out modeling in probably 2006. The modeling made me like photography as well. So,
Do you to turn your head a little bit?
both of them are very exciting because you feel better when you're creating the image and when you're bringing the image to the camera.
Perfect.
I graduated from Daytona State College in 2013 with an associate's degree in photography. I work for a company that I do weddings and event corporates. And then I have my own business and I do all different kinds of photographs. This photograph got published in a book, and at the Daytona State they had a photography contest for this photography program. And mine won, and I got $500 for winning it. I got my own camera when I went to Daytona State College. I needed to take an elective, and that was my first time being able to take an elective because in high school I was in intensive reading and a math class. I have a syndrome called 22q, 11.2 deletion syndrome, also known as velocardiofacial syndrome. And I got diagnosed when I was 2 years old. I had 4 or 5 surgeries when I was little, and by the age of 2 I had pneumonia 12 times. Things that I've experienced with my syndrome is of course the surgeries. When I was a week old I had heart surgery because my right aortic arch wasn't connected to the stump, so they had to switch that. Some of us have scoliosis like I do, where your spine is shaped like an S, and it causes back pain a lot. I found out that they were coming to Florida, to Orlando, for the Disney World 22q conference. We all got to get together. They all had different talks about what goes wrong with the syndrome, and some people went up and spoke like I did and told the parents that not to worry. Most of us will be fine. It was an amazing experience. It was my first time speaking in public about my syndrome, and seeing all the kids' faces and them coming up to me asking different questions about what I wanted to do with photography. My mom and I wrote a book. We're still trying to get it published. It's about her point of view on what she went through dealing with my syndrome and the complications, and then my point of view of growing up with the syndrome throughout my whole life. It's definitely allowed me to know who I am and what kind of things I like and what kind of person I am. I guess I'll call myself a role model. That's what I've heard a lot of people saying it. I don't feel like a role model, but I try. I stay positive all the time because I just try my best, and then I just try and live life day by day even though I am in pain most of the time, I just try and move on and Because I think about other people who are also in pain and they still live with their life on a daily basis. I'm proud of the person I am today.
Wow, that was such an inspiring story, really.
Yeah, it's great that she's not letting anything hold her back.
Yeah, definitely.
Coming up next, one man shares his heartwarming story as he battles cancer once again.
When I was a young child, I grew up on a beach town. In those days, and we're going back 75 to 80 years ago, there was no such thing as skin blockers. Nobody knew much about the effects of the sun on the skin, and year after year, I would absorb whatever the sun gave me. I would pay for this in later years. 25 years ago, my general practitioner detected a problem in my breathing. And as a result, they discovered I had melanoma in my right lung. Melanoma, I guess, of the three types is the most severe. And that did a needle biopsy, and then they did a surgical procedure through my right side. I got a nice long scar here. And they removed the lower lobe, my right lung. It was called a lobectomy. So like I got 2/3 of my right lung. And then following that, I had follow-ups by oncologists, and they discovered another melanoma in my transverse colon, which runs this way, and that one was removed surgically as well. I recently discovered, almost a year ago now, a lump under my right armpit. And I had been taking radiation therapy for skin cancers on my head and my neck. So I spoke to my radiation oncologist, and we agreed on a radiation therapy treatment. After 40 radiation treatments, apparently that didn't take. The cancer was stronger than the radiation, and now I find, unfortunately, that I have lung cancer in both lungs. This lung cancer prevented me from having a procedure to replace my arterial valve of my heart. So here I am. The whole thing is effectively under oxygen. I use a walker. I don't drive anymore. I'm pretty much a shut-in. And I am under hospice home care. My wife, she constantly worries, and I can't do anything about it. I'm a pretty level guy. I'm an engineer by training. I'm logical. I got my degrees, I have my career, and I married my beautiful wife 62 years ago, and you know, I wouldn't change anything for that.
This was another great story about someone who doesn't let an illness, dictate the way they live their life.
Yeah, definitely, and it's such a great story of survival, and everyone can learn something from it. But now let's take a look at how one professor is using her Hispanic background to diversify education for her students.
My name is Catidia Coronado. Oh, and if you really want to throw in the Cuban part, it's Catidia Barbara Coronado. So, but I go by Katie, and it's okay. Let's get some energy. All right, looking good. All right, Brittany. In news, I started when I was here at UCF. I was a student and taking some journalism classes and just really, really wanted to graduate fast. I was doing an internship at Telemundo, and then they offered me a job, and slowly but surely I got to a level of comfort. Then I applied to the network in Miami, and I graduated, moved away, and that's what happened. It kind of seems like a fairy tale, but that's what happened. But I worked really, really hard to get there. I worked full-time and went to school full-time, and I wouldn't change a thing. Then I went to the Tampa market with the same company, and that's how I transitioned into English. In Spanish, I think that the culture itself is just so different. I'll give you an example. In Miami, we're on deadline. We have 20 million things going on, just like we do in English, but there's always time for a little Cuban coffee. And the lady passes by and she's like, hey, do you want, or one of your coworkers, do you want some coffee? And all of a sudden you have time for a break. But I feel like in English, we're a little bit more structured, and there's a line and you have to follow it, and maybe it's my perception, but from my experience I feel like that line is not as straight in Spanish, and you can kind of go here, then you can go there, and you still get to the same place, but hey, take it easy, relax a little bit. And I found that to be plus to be able to live and breathe in both of those environments. Then I bounced back to Orlando, worked at WESH, which is where the whole name change comes into play. I'm Katie Coronado. Thank you for joining us. Now tonight's big stories. Back then, when I applied for a job to transition into English from Spanish, I feel that sending out resumes and not getting callbacks was not based on the skills I had, because my skills stayed the same on the resume. What changed were the names of the companies throughout the years, which was the same one. It was just the parent company. And then the name, which changed from Catidia to Katie, and that's what happened. And after that, I got into teaching because the transition was from that project to where I am now. It was one phone call. Dr. Brown said, hey, do you want to come and be an adjunct? We're trying to do something in Spanish. And here I am today.
Sobre lo que tienes ya ahí y qué te hace falta.
Ok, lo que tengo ya son los rundowns, ya tengo la lista de todos los CGs y los gráficos.
I've been working with students here at the Nicholson School of Communication to start a project called Nightly Latino. It's basically nightly news, so it's news, but covering Latino-based issues and in Spanish. And so what these students do is they become bilingual multimedia journalists so that they can become more marketable when they graduate. And at this time, we have several students who have been placed throughout the country.
And that makes a big difference in the product, and that's what counts, the final product.
My name is Catidia Coronado.
That was awesome, just because I know Professor Coronado, and I've learned so much with her from her. I've worked with her on Nightly Latino, and she really is a big influence in what I'm doing now.
I can completely agree. She was my nightly teacher, so I love her. So
yeah,
great to do a story on her.
Definitely.
A former Marine is giving back to veterans that suffer from PTSD. Let's take a look at how.
PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, and so there's several different symptoms of it, but essentially you have to have a life-threatening situation, or at least perception of it being a life-threatening situation. I just graduated high school. I knew I wanted to do something in the social field, so either somewhere in mental health. I didn't know all that much about it. but I had no way to pay for it. And so I was thinking, okay, well, I'll go into the military. They have the GI Bill. They would be able to pay for my undergraduate. I was in the Marine Corps Infantry. I was a 0341, which is a mortarman, but for the most part, I was a assault gunner, embedded in a squad in the 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines Infantry Division. So our first deployment was in 2006, and that was in Aditha, Iraq. Described it earlier to a lot of different people, just my very bad deployment. In Aditha, just every day, it seemed anyway, some kind of combat event happened, either small arms fire, IEDs, mortar attacks on us, so just a number of different events. I'm a student clinician here, so where I am treating veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan with PTSD. We essentially use exposure therapy, that's the root of it all. But we use virtual reality as a tool to enhance that exposure. And so we have a virtual Iraq, virtual Afghanistan, where we can simulate an IED. We also use different sights and different smells to also enhance that exposure therapy as well. So the key is it has to be very similar to their traumatic event. What I'm drawing is what a typical session looks like, 0 anxiety at all. Up here would be an 8, so the most anxious they've ever been in their lives. They come in at the very beginning of the session, so it's 0 minutes. Their baseline SUDS, subjective unit of distress, their anxiety level, comes in at 4, the first session. They start at an 8, they're at an 8 for a little while, and then slowly their anxiety level starts going down.
The more weeks that you go into the program and the more that you show up and you dedicate yourself to it, the more that you'll stop coming in at a 3 and a 4, and you'll start coming in at a 1 and a 2, and you'll stop peaking at a 10, and you'll start peaking at a 6 or a 5, where it's manageable.
Once I tell them a little bit about my background, I don't talk much about myself. That's not why they're there. I just give them a quick little heads up. Okay, yes, I am an Iraqi combat veteran. I was in the Marine Corps Infantry. They instantly I think they're able to open up a little bit easier.
It can be difficult for people to open up to people who don't know what they're going through, but for that element to be there is extremely helpful.
I have had a pretty good success rate. A couple of the veterans that I have seen where they came in, and what we do is a clinician administered PTSD scale, and they scored really highly on that, meaning they had a lot of symptoms. So one thing we assess are frequency and severity of the symptoms, and for a couple of the veterans I had, especially one in particular, he was very high on that severity level. For me to see him come in such a severe state, and toward the end of it, no longer endorsing all those symptoms, but again, enjoying life again. It's a very rewarding job when it is effective like that. I helped this veteran become a successful citizen. I try to do whatever I can, almost break my back. So just again, because I have that kind of relationship.
Before I went into the 17-week program at UCF, my life had spiraled completely downwards. I was homeless, jobless. My wife had left me and was filing for divorce. I had basically lost everything in my life. Now I've held a job in a machine shop for a year now. I'm the lead singer of my band. This is my home right here. And it completely turned my life around.
I understand that it is a difficult thing to go through combat, come back, and transition. And so I feel very passionate. I think it's the best way to describe it. And compassionate, where I just want to help them out and just do whatever I can to make sure that they adjust very well. So not just no longer having PTSD, but having successful lives.
This is such a great program for our former servicemen and women to help them assimilate back into life in the U.S. Definitely, and that support system that they have there, it's changing lives, and I'm pretty sure it'll continue to do so. For our last video, let's hang out at Broadway Joe's Barber Shop, where we will get a feel for the way haircuts used to be done.
My name is Joe Penacchio. I am a third generation barber, and I love what I do.
I'm his wife, Helen.
I'm very happy here.
I work in the barber shop with Joe.
Since a little boy with my granddad and my daddy, they were barbers. They had a barber shop, beautiful shop, back in Italy. And I always loved it to be a barber. When you have your diaper on as a baby, you hang around in the shop. So they know that that's what you want to do.
And then they came to America. 4 brothers, his grandfather and his 3 brothers. And they came to Jersey City, New Jersey.
My daddy opened a shop in downtown New York City, and I work with him. I rent a store on Broadway to put in my shop. And when I was ready, they say, you can't open a shop yet because I didn't have a license for the state. He said, can you give me the name you want to give it the shop? I say, yeah. If you give me right away, maybe I could speed up the situation with the license. I look outside. I see Broadway. I says, put a Broadway Joe. And that's how it went. I did a Sinatra. I did the same David Jr. I cut his hair.
A local celebrity is Jim Phillips. I'm from the Phillips File. How he came to be a client of ours is that on his radio show, he was speaking about how before he gave up the ghost, he would like very much to get an old-fashioned hot towel shave. So they called Joe, and he has no idea, really, that he's even on the radio.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you today?
Fine. Who's this, Jimmy?
Yeah, this is Jimmy.
Jimmy, how you doing today? This is Joe speaking.
We're really like the 3 musketeers. You know, our son is 35. He works here with us as well. So we all want each one to do the very best they can, and so we help each other. So, you know, 3 together, you usually stand pretty tight and pretty tall.
Yeah, we want him to be a barber, but he's a musician.
You know, his music degree really is utilized here because in the afternoons, a lot of times he'll pick up the guitar and he'll entertain the people while they're waiting to get a haircut.
Yes.
It's a whole different atmosphere here.
Yes.
Everybody that comes in is so important to us. That's the truth.
Yes.
And if they're having a sad day or bad day, we know them so well that we can already read their face, and so they discuss many things with us. And sometimes we'll just stop the haircut and encourage them, and
we pray
we'll pray for them if they need prayer. And you know, it's such a warm atmosphere. We really want them to feel at home here and relaxed, and they apparently do. So I think that's the key.
When they come in here, they fall asleep. They're relaxing. They don't think about anything else.
It's cappuccino time.
Yeah, let's take a 5. Let's take a 5.
I got ideas, yes, but I only got another 25 years ahead of me.
30.
You know what I mean? 30 more years. So I gotta get a younger person involved in my profession. And it's very important that we produce a good work. When you work with love, with feeling, you want to produce a good work. That's the way it is.
Just as long as I've got you. There is so much history in that little barber shop.
Yeah, there really is.
Yeah, I might have to check it out next time I get my hair cut.
I know, I'm not planning on shaving my head anytime soon, but it seems like a cool place to hang out.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's all the time we have today on EKnights. To see more of our videos, please check us out online.
For Arnold Godoy, I'm Paige Sterner. Thank you so much for joining us, and until next time, we'll see you later.